It's absolutely true, Morgan. It's absolutely true. I text Morgan. I'm like, I have to pee real quick. And she texts me back and says, "You are an absolute disaster." I was like, that is absolutely true. That is truer words have never been said. And I forgot that for whatever reason, my podcast link, you have to so I got to sit here and hit the admit button over and over and over and over.
I was wondering. I was like, is there not more people coming?
I don't know why that's a thing on my other links. As long as you have the password, it's fine. I think maybe I did it on purpose so that people wouldn't interrupt podcast episodes or something, but also no one else has the podcast link, so I don't know. So while we're talking, I have to sit here and hit the admit button.
You got
Guys,
this. I believe in you. Are we recording already, or are we not recording?
Not yet.
Start talking.
Not yet.
Okay, good.
Not yet. Nope. We are not. Although I'm gonna go live here on Instagram, just for fun, for behind the scenes stuff. So Morgan, she asked me to be on her show a little while ago, and that was in the middle of me being sick and traveling. And then I got home. Finally, it was done being sick and traveling. I was like, okay, let's do this thing. But also, I just think it's fun. I did this one time 4 years ago with someone where we interviewed each other back and forth, and it became this really cool episode. So I literally messaged Morgan yesterday and was like, what do you think about doing it this way? And she was like, I knew you were going to ask me to do something crazy that was not normal. I knew you were going to be like, let's do something random that has never been done before. So that's what we're doing today. And I'm so excited. Are you excited, Morgan?
Oh, this is lovely. No, I'm kidding. I'm so excited. But for those of you that don't know me, I'm very awkward, which I'm sure we'll end up talking about. So,
we're gonna jam on that.
But yeah, I'm up for whatever. Even if I make a fool of myself, I'm moving forward faster than people who aren't willing to. So
there you go. There you go. So the built-in lesson for those of you that joined us live before we even get into it, built-in lesson from Morgan. Okay, let's hit record as I admit more people to join us. Oh, I hate that setting.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, well, we've got a fun little special podcast double episode for you because I am being joined by my friend Morgan, and Morgan is being joined by her friend Josh for a little bit of a double podcast. So, Morgan, here's what I think we should do.
Okay.
I'll do a quick little intro for my podcast.
Okay.
And then you can do a quick little intro for your podcast. And then we'll kind of take turns asking each other questions. Does that sound good?
It sounds great to me. I mean, I think this is going to be more entertaining than anything. So.
Okay, good. So here comes the intro for my podcast. What's up, everybody? This is Josh, your Push Coach podcast. So excited to hang with you today. I've got such a fun episode where Morgan Zambrano will be joining me, and we're going to be interviewing each other into what will become a podcast for an episode, I should say, for my podcast, and then also an episode for her podcast. So that is my intro. And then Morgan, you can do your intro.
Okay. Well, welcome. For those of you who've never been on the Front Row with Morgan Zambrano podcast, my podcast is all about showing up front row in your business and front row in your life. You are no longer hiding in the middle or goofing off in the back. When you're listening to my podcast, we are leaning in, we are asking questions, and we are engaged. So very excited to have you, very excited to have Josh. I know he very much is actually, no, you're probably not a front row person. You are probably a goofing off in the back person, but you know what? We're going to pull it out of him, and we're going to we're going to bring him front row and front center this episode.
That's a really interesting thought. Because honestly, when I first started, I definitely was on the front row everywhere I went because I was just a punk kid that was there and I could do that. You know what I mean? But one of the really weird things for me was that as my success took off, I had to stop going to the events that my mentor was putting on because people would just chase me down in the bathroom to ask me how I was having success. And I've always been one of those people, like, I will just share anything and everything that I'm doing. And that became to my detriment as I lost basically all personal boundaries and had to stop going to events because of the fact that, like, I was trying to go to events to recharge myself, and it turned into Josh mentoring people on pee breaks. And I think that's when I became more of like the hangout in the back guy, not because I don't want to learn, but because like I just needed my own space so that I could learn
Mhm.
versus like I'm a chatty person. And if I'm sitting next to someone and they want to chat, like I don't know how to say, no, hey, excuse me, you know, like I don't know how to be that guy. So sometimes I just have to like put myself in the back of the room where I'm not tempted to be the guy that will just talk to whoever wants to chat.
No, and I completely get that. And honestly, the front row concept is more of a like a mindset, and you are so front row in your business. It just means you're the person that's making decisions in your business. You're not
Mhm.
just questioning whether you should even have a
Oh,
business. You're
I
not
see.
just goofing off doing
Yeah.
whatever willy-nilly in your business. Your business is intentional. You are sitting front row and engaged in your business. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and I like that. I like that a lot. I like that a lot. So I would probably just use the word like intentional, but I really, really, really like that you've turned that into like a whole um almost like an identity, which I
Mhm.
think is a really, really, really important thing for the sake of community building is to like create an identity. So I like
And
that. I like that a
and
lot.
branding, right? Branding.
Yes, correct. And branding, yes. So let's dive in. I'll give my quick 30-second bio and then you can give your quick 30-second bio. Mine, I'm just pulling right out of my ass, and I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say ass on Morgan's show, so she can edit that out if she wants to. But basically, I am 10 years now, certified life and performance coach. Started off my business as like a true life coach. Like I was not trying to help people make money or anything like that. It was literally just serving people with the skills that I had. But as that grew to six figures, then people became a little bit more interested in knowing what I did to get six figures. And that's when I started teaching a little bit more on like the business side of things. And that eventually really became my passion. I love so much the psychology behind life coaching. I do not love talking to people for hours about like their personal lives. I want to dig into the psychology of like what is keeping you from moving forward in your business. Like I don't want to sit around and have 45-minute conversations about like I don't know why you I don't know anything in like personal life. I'm just like, "No, thanks. Let's talk about your business and what's holding you back there and let's get the obstacles out of the way so that you can move forward faster."
And I'm Morgan. I'm awkward. I'm an introvert. I started in network marketing 7 years ago as a way to stay home with my kids. It was very intentional. So if you are in network marketing, I know a lot of people will join for the discount or they'll join to see how it goes. I was all in from day one. I saw it as my vehicle to have the life that I wanted. And so no matter how terrified and unskilled I was in the beginning, I had a very strong belief that this was the vehicle to get me to where I wanted to go. And so, I found success. I was able to quit my job and stay home with my kids. I've built a significant team. And so, from that, my purpose and my passion now is to help other women to make money while making memories. So, it's not just about the money, it's not just about the income, it's about when we're making that type of money and that type of income, what we can do with it and the memories that we can create, not just with our kids, because a lot of women, might not have children, but it's about your family and
Yeah.
the memories that you can make in your life, if that makes sense.
I love that. I love that so much. Cool. So, let's dig into this. I'm ready for my first question to ask you. Are you ready?
I don't know,
You
but
know,
I'll try. I'll
I
do
think
my
you're going to
best.
like it.
Oh gosh.
I think you're gonna like it. So you are literally have already said that you are basically an awkward introvert. Okay. So here's what I want to know because honestly, I feel like that's one of the biggest limiting beliefs people tend to have. I mean, I literally did a one-on-one session with one of your ladies last night, and she was talking about how she's not good with people. Hi,
Mhm.
Heather. She
Shout
was
out to
like,
him.
I'm not good with people. And I was like, okay, well, we need to dig into this because I feel like you're accidentally adopting an identity based on how you're naturally wired, right? And that's like me saying I'm not a good parent because I'm not naturally a caretaker, but I do work really hard to be a good parent even though naturally I'm not a caretaker, right? So what I want to know is, with you being this introverted, awkward as you call it, I wouldn't say that. Um how have you like really leaned in and separated yourself from that in a way that allows you to like move forward and lean in and do what you need to do to grow a business?
Oh goodness, you guys. Starting where this is so easy. This is no, I'm just kidding. Um, so I don't like I said with my story, the whole reason I started my business, I really did have a big why. And that makes me like, look, like I have a question for you about having a why. By the way, that's one of my questions
Cool.
for you, Josh. But I had this really big reason that I was starting a business. I never in my life would have done a live video, would have spoken. I like, just so you guys understand, like I dropped out of my Spanish minor in college in the final class because we would have had to stand in front of the class and do a presentation. And I dropped it after 2 years of
Yeah.
doing this minor. I was like, I can't do it. That's how terrified I was to speak to people and speak in front of people. But if you know that there's a path that
Mhm.
can take you to your dream life,
Mm.
I wasn't going to be the only person standing in my way.
Yeah.
And I think that some of us, we are the only person standing in our way. The steps are very clear. The
Mm.
steps to becoming a better public speaker, the steps to
Yeah.
becoming a better salesperson, the steps to building social media, they're all out there. They just have to be followed. And
Right.
honestly, the biggest reason why a lot of people don't follow them is their own fears and their
Yeah.
own story that they tell themselves. And so,
Yeah.
anyway, my why was really big. And I followed mentors like you. I found you really early on. And by finding mentors, I was able to follow those paths. And I mean, I'm telling you, like right now, my heart is racing. Like my aura ring is probably like, why are you so stressed right now? You just do the things that you need to do to get to where you want to go, or you really just don't want it that badly. And that might sound really direct, but that's how I feel. I ask myself every single day, like, what's worse, like your fear of doing an interview and
Yeah.
potentially like bombing it, or like not getting to the dream life that you're looking for. So
Yeah.
I don't know if
Well,
that.
that very last thing you said was really, really key. You said, I ask myself daily.
Mhm.
And to me, like when I look back at my journey, it was the same way. There was a lot of what we call in my certification self-coaching. And all self-coaching really is sitting down regularly with questions to look at like the different options. Like option 1, I'm more comfortable continuing to like live the way that like I'm used to, but I continue to also have all of the disadvantages of what my life is, right? Like for me, it was detailing cars. And I was like, I literally can't do this for another 10 years. I will break my back. It will literally happen. So, like, I can stay in this place, or I can do this thing that's kind of scary. And then I'm like literally comparing the difference in the pain,
Mhm.
like the pain of hating what I do for a living versus the pain of taking a couple hours to like talk to strangers on the internet. And even though I'm an extrovert, so the talking part comes easier for me than maybe it does for Morgan. I'm a big time people pleaser, like big time. So it scared me so bad to send someone a message that had an agenda,
Mhm.
because I was so afraid that that person would end up thinking that I was like a bad person, or like that's my biggest fear is like I don't want like I'm an Enneagram 3, which means I'm naturally like motivational and inspiring and all of that, but I'm also scared to death that someone will take it the wrong way and think that I'm a bad person, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And so like yeah, that asking daily is got to be one of the keys to success. Like not just saying this is my goal, this is what I'm but literally sitting down in like a logical sense, because there is some psychology behind that, by the way, of like taking these feelings and emotions that feel larger than life. But then when I ask these logical questions, what it does is it naturally calms the emotions and allows me to process things in a different way versus being just like I feel like people get these overwhelming feelings and then they feed them instead of like working through them. And so then it's almost like you get limiting beliefs on top of limiting belief. Then you have like limiting beliefs about the fact that you have limiting beliefs. And then it's just like this spiral that churns like sometimes when I'm on a coaching session, I'm like, I feel like you're swimming deep into the ocean. And instead of coming back to shore, you're trying to swim further into the deep end. So I'm going to have to just grab you and just yank you back for a second and like almost jolt you out of this self sabotage loophole that you're stuck in.
I really think you're one of the people, not one of the people, you're the person that taught me. Like, I don't even know if you remember saying this. It was almost a joke, but I was like, why do I talk out loud to myself? When I'm talking about my goals, I have to talk out loud.
Mhm.
And you were just like, that's how you that's how you process logically. You were like,
Yeah.
if you keep it in your head, you're gonna spiral into emotion. You're
Yeah.
naturally processing out loud, which makes it more logical.
Right.
And so for anyone who's never heard that before,
Yeah.
that was such a light bulb moment for me.
Yeah.
um Okay, so my question kind of is on a similar,
Okay.
really similar to what we're already talking
Okay.
about. I love how you talk about finding the best version of you.
Mm.
And the reason that I love this is because when you, for those of you who haven't, I literally have the book right here, Best Version of You. Okay. You might have seen my face on the bajillion ads that, Josh puts money into. But for real, it's such an interesting concept that I'd never considered in the way that you talk about it.
Mhm.
Instead of focusing on a goal or a result that for a lot of us can stress us out because we're like, I don't know how to get there. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know how to get to this big goal. I don't know how to get
Yeah.
to this income goal. I don't know how to get to this life that I want. And instead, you talk about focusing on just becoming the best version of you. And
Yeah.
so I don't know if you could just kind of talk about that a little bit, talk with
Mhm.
our audience or our podcast listeners about
Yeah.
what it means to find the best version of you, almost like as you're
Yeah.
growing towards your goals. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. It does. So, like, just to take you back to my first year when I first signed up to become a certified life coach, I mean, I had zero business experience other than the fact that I had started and quitted 6 different businesses. But, like, when I say started and quit, I mean, like, I quit within the first 3 weeks. So, like, it's not like I did something for 6 years and learned a whole bunch of lessons that I could then apply. No, like, I quit before I ever even had a chance to learn anything. So, at 30 years old, I signed up to do this, and the only thing I knew for sure was that, like, I was probably, like, the worst in the world at this. Like, I literally felt like I joined a certification where everybody else, it seemed, head voice, was like 55, 60-year-old dude with like 30 years of business experience that just literally added a certification to the experience and the expertise that they already had. And so for them, I mean, based on the training, it kind of seemed like this is what they were literally doing. They were just like calling up their other business buddies and being like, hey, now I'm a certified coach. Could I come to your business and do some work for you? And their friend is like, well, we do have $1 million budget because we're also a successful business. So why don't you come on over and we'll write you a check? And to me, it seemed like this is just what was happening. People who were already successful were adding a new thing that they were then using to become even more successful. And I'm like, well, I don't have any of that experience. I don't have any of like I don't have anything other than what I can learn today.
Mhm.
And so my goal was, first of all, I didn't even know what to have as a goal. You know what I mean? Like I didn't know what business even was supposed. No one had even taught me yet that you're supposed to have a goal. And so for me, the only goal I had was literally learn as much as humanly possible. I do think that early on I heard a quote about, like becoming the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I
Mhm.
was like, well, I got nothing. No one in my life that I can be around that makes me like learn or improve or grow. So my real true goal is to spend so much time listening to these training calls that the people that I'm learning from virtually essentially become the people with the most influence in my life. And if that happens and I can just become like more like them, I'm just trusting that like somehow good things will come out of that. So that kind of became my focus. And early on, I kind of created this quote that says that your outward success is an expression of your inward growth. And I've used that quote kind of over and over through my business as I've gone through like weird little slumps where I'm just like, something's off and I don't really know what it is. One of the first things I ask myself is like, where's my growth journey at right now? And this isn't to say that like mindset instantly fixes your business, because nothing instantly fixes your business. But one of the things that I say in my book, like over and over and over, is like the worst version of yourself is definitely not going to figure this problem out. Like if you're like someone who's like trying to build a business and you are in your worst mindset, I promise you, you will not have good ideas or creative ideas or solutions. In your best mindset, I'm not saying everything magically happens, but you are definitely 100 times more likely to learn the thing you need to learn, see the thing you need to see, and actually move forward in your business. And what I have found is not only do you move forward in your business, but you actually end up like becoming a better human, becoming a better person, and becoming better in all of the other ways. And that's what I like. That's one of the things I really love about our certification, Morgan, is I feel
Mhm.
like people definitely become better for their businesses. But what always surprises them is they're like, my marriage is better than it's ever been before. I'm like better as a parent. Like I'm literally using all these life coaching skills in my day to day life. And I literally had like, I signed up to grow my business and I had no idea the kind of impact it was going to make in my personal life. And to me, that's like my favorite thing to hear.
Mhm. And I mean, that's how I feel about network marketing is I mean, we literally call it personal development with a paycheck, right? Like the more you grow yourself, the
Yeah.
more your paycheck is going to grow. And again, it's not about the income, it's about the impact that you can have on other people. But I thought it was so funny. I've never heard anyone else say what you said, and I think it all the time, where you said, you know, I want to be the average of the 5 people that I'm surrounded by, but I'm not surrounded by people. So instead, it's like
Yeah.
my coaches are Jim Rohn, or
Yeah.
like the people I'm surrounded by are like Josh Coates on a podcast. It's so funny that you said that. I was like, that's exactly what I try to think about. Is I'll be
Yeah.
the average of my 5 mentors.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a really, really cool thing that I think we like just forget about. Like my biggest limiting belief was I don't know anyone who's ever been successful. And yet here are hundreds of books from people that have been successful. That is probably like reading my book is definitely you're gonna learn more from 100 pages than you would just like having coffee with me once a month. And I mean, like probably you'd learn something having coffee, but like when we put out books, we're essentially saying the very best of everything I've learned in the last couple of years is going into this. And I started realizing like John Maxwell's books were essentially all of the pain he had gone through to become who he is
Mhm.
passed off to me in a package where I got to learn all the lessons without any of the pain. I was just like, this is magic. Like I get to grow from his 40 years of experience without having to have any of those nights where he had to cry himself to sleep because of the pain of the failures along the way. So that's my favorite thing. I love to learn as much as I can with as little of the pain. And it still comes with my own pain along the way, but like I'm the youngest of four. So I would always like watch my older brother who was like always getting in trouble. And I would always just be like, note to self, don't do that. That that gets you yelled at, that gets you suspended. So I mean, I was always just like in the background, like taking notes on how to learn from other people's failures. So when I learned that like it takes failure to learn and grow and succeed, I was like, cool, well, let's just go find out who's already had those failures. Cause like I'd rather learn from that than do it myself.
That's hilarious. I feel like my kids are similar.
Okay, so here's what I want to know. What are some things you do to continue to grow your confidence and leadership? Because you've been doing this for like 7 years now. And I feel like every time we go, several months without talking and then we like catch back up, I feel like this person is still growing and still moving forward. Like, and I don't just mean from a business perspective, which is
Mhm.
also important. Like, I think it's great to keep making more money, but I mean more on like on just on a human level. I feel like you're always excited about something and learning and plugging in. So, what do you think is like some of the keys to that?
Uh, it's intentional. I don't even mean to keep saying that word, but it
Good
is
word.
like it's funny. I have a reel scheduled for later today because I backed my reels, and my reel that's scheduled for today is it. It literally says, "Is anyone else really proud of where you are, but like not even close to where you want to go?"
Yeah.
Because that's me. Like I have come so far, and I'm not even close to where I want to get to. And I think that's important. It's important
Yeah.
to be proud of where you are every single day. Because if you're not, you're going to be miserable on the journey.
Yeah.
And there's no point in even taking the journey if you're miserable
Right.
every step of the way. Right. So
Yeah.
every single day, gosh, you're pointing out the fact that I keep saying the same things, but it's true. This is an everyday process, you guys. So
Yeah.
every day I'm grateful for where I am. I'm grateful of how far I've come. And I'm also not where I want to go. And so having mentors. So I have a vision of where I want to go. I have a vision of ways that I want to speak better, of ways that I want to have better relationships, of ways that I want to even dress better and have better health. Like I know where I'm headed and I know
Mhm.
where I want to go, and then I find people to follow that
Yeah.
are similar to that, and I try to
Yeah.
just keep showing up. Um Recently, like I also try to be aware of my blind spots. Some of you, if you look at your blind spots, you start to feel negative about yourself.
Yeah.
Um, when I look at my blind spots, I see areas that I could grow. I see
Yeah.
my potential. So things that I haven't done yet, things that I haven't learned yet, things that I'm not good at yet.
Yeah.
Instead of being down on myself about that, I go, "Ooh, when I grow that, what's
Mm.
going to happen? Ooh, when I am better at this, how
Yeah.
much could that change my life?" And so for me, one of my biggest areas of growth is being able to communicate with people in person. I'm
Mm.
not great at it. I can talk on Zoom all day long. I can talk on live video all day long. Not great in person. I really clam up. I'm really like, I go back to that 7 years ago, that shy girl who lets someone else take the lead.
Mm.
And I'm working on it. I'm working on trying to walk into a room a little bolder, a little louder, a little like head held higher, a little more confident.
Yeah.
Um, but I wouldn't be able to become that person if I didn't have a picture of who she is. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
No, it
And
does.
so, yeah. So, I mean, because you told me, you were like, for someone who's introverted, you sure are spending time with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I haven't for the last 7 years. I haven't. It's only the last 90 days that, like, almost every single week,
Mhm.
I am trying to do something that's around
Yeah.
strangers, not just people I know, but actually people I don't
Yeah.
know, so that I can learn to communicate better because that's my focus right now.
Yeah.
So,
I love that. I love that so much. One of my favorite things about you, Morgan, is just how fully you own your own weaknesses while not using it as an excuse to keep you
mhm.
from growth. Because I do think that's really important. I'm kind of the same way with like my lack of like organization and Morgan was like, for those of you that were here, Morgan, I texted her like at noon, which is when the podcast is supposed to start, was like, I gotta pee. I'll be right back. And she's like, you are a mess. And I was like, yeah, I am. I literally am a mess. And I own that while not using it as an excuse to keep me
Mhm.
from success, because we all have natural strengths, natural weaknesses. And I think success is all about fully owning your strengths and leaning into them while developing your weaknesses. I'm not trying to be a 10 out of 10 on organization. I
Mhm.
I would hate it. Like, nothing would make me more sad than trying to be that organized. I would just hate life. But I also can't be a 0 out of 10 and have $1 million business. So on one hand, for me, like, I lean a little bit more into my charisma and creativity, meanwhile working on my organization skills, hiring people to surround myself with that pick up, the balls that I drop, and then allowing them to call me out and being like, "Hey, like, I think we need more structure in our group." Like, one of the things I added in the last like year and a half is every call comes with a workbook, which used to I would have 3 notes and I'd be like, "Cool, let's go do the call. I got my 3 notes." And now it's like, no, I'm sitting down and literally building out a workbook so that other people can receive it better and have
Mhm.
something to kind of like return to. They don't have to watch the entire call. It's essentially like, here's something like essentially the notes, the outline, which is normal for some people, but for me it's not. I'm not an outline person. I am a let's just show up and make fun stuff happen. Like, that's my personality. So I love that you own it. I love that you embrace it. But then you also are like, I'm going to literally do things. And can we pause for a second and say there's a really big difference between wanting to grow and doing what it takes to grow? There's a really good quote from a book I'm listening to. What did he say? He said it's not about the quotes that you have hanging on the wall. It's about what you actually do from the inspiration of those quotes. And I loved that, because sometimes it's just like, yeah, give me all the feel good things. Like, I just want to have just feels good. It's awesome. And personal growth can turn into more of like a feelings thing or a
Mhm.
positivity thing than a growth thing.
Well, I really think one of my it's almost like a pet peeve. There's probably a better word for it, but I coach a lot of people, hundreds of people, and one of my like kind of it's almost like a little red flag. But it's not red, but it's like it's a
Yeah.
little red flag when people are like, I need to get better at live videos," and I'm like, "When's the last time you went live?" And it's like a month ago, and I'm like, "You're not going to get better at something if you're not doing
Right.
it consistently." And so, but on the flip side, if you want to get better at something, do it consistently, and that is the answer. Like, I truly believe that we can get better at anything that we do consistently. It's just about getting ourselves to do it consistently, which
Yeah.
might dive into depending on time. Um, I have a different kind of question for you. I've
Okay.
never asked a question quite like this
Mm,
before.
okay.
Um, but we're talking about, you know, our qualities and we're talking about our strengths and our
Mhm.
weaknesses. But you have a unique perspective of working with a lot of 6 and 7 figure earners in network
Yeah.
marketing, in life coaching, in maybe like real estate, just very high level people. And
Mhm.
I'm curious, what are some qualities,
Mhm.
strengths, just that you see? Oh my gosh, what's the word? What's the word I'm looking for? That they like have in common. Like, what are some strengths and qualities of these successful or high achieving
Yeah.
humans?
Well, I mean, one is that they work on themselves a lot.
Mhm.
Like, my chiropractor friend who um has 3 different chains. I mean, he's very, very, very successful, super confident dude. In a lot of ways, personality type and thing, like, we're actually very similar people. So it's fun for me to like watch him and
Mhm.
see what he does. Like, it's great to learn from someone the opposite, but sometimes it's nice to actually see someone that's like almost just like you and be like, oh, what are they doing? That definitely would work for me, right? And I mean, always listening to books, always going to conferences, always trying to improve. Like, there's 2 things that you have to get really good at. One is working on yourself, and then 2 is working on your craft. And I think that people who are really successful like find the magic in doing both. Like, some people become very obsessed with getting good at their craft, but like that's it. Like I was, the starving artist. Like you're the best guitar player in the world that no one's ever heard of. And that's like cool, but sucks. Right. But then you also have on the flip side, the person that's read 20 times more of the books than I have and could like quote 1,000 different things that they've heard people say. And literally, like, one of my pet peeves, Morgan, is when I'm on a call teaching and I start coaching someone and they bring up an issue that they have. And then someone in the chat is like, you should read this book. And it's almost like to them, they've got an entire arsenal of books to solve your problems. But to me, like, don't get me wrong, I have a lot of books that I could recommend and they're really good. But to me, it's like, but what did you actually take and turn into experience from that book? It's one thing to quote a book. It's another thing to have experienced the stuff and then have something of your own to say that came from your heart and your soul, And so, like, you can be obsessed with your craft or you can be obsessed with just learning. And there's somewhere in the middle, and I don't even really know how to explain it, but there's a middle ground where you're obsessed with learning so that you can apply it to your craft. And then it's just like this, it's going back and forth. So I think that's one of the big things. The other thing, I kind of already said this, is that everyone that I know that's really successful has really mastered leaning into their strengths while developing their weaknesses. They've never, ever used their weakness as an excuse. So every single person that is out there has something that you're naturally gifted in. Okay. It's very important for you to lean into that. I always tell people, like, I'm the webinar guy because I'm super high energy. Spend 1 hour with me and you'll want to spend the rest of your life with me. I can't do that for a 5-day challenge because at the end of 5 days, I would just drop dead. Like, I don't have the energy to do what I do 5 days in a row for an audience, right? But some people are more low key and they're very good at building community. Morgan's one of those people, incredible community builder. She doesn't need to try to hype everyone out for 1 hour. She would fall over dead doing that. And so it's really important to understand that there's more than one path to success, but the path that's right for you is always putting your strengths and the way you're wired first. And then also, like Morgan already said, being aware of your blind spots and not just leaving them totally blind. So like in 2020, one of my things was like, okay, I'm really like on a charisma. I feel like I'm a 10 out of 10. That could be an exaggeration. I might be a 4 out of 10, but like, I just feel like that's my like zone of genius. Right. But I was like, when it comes to my sales and marketing, it is kind of just all over the place. Like, it's just make enough noise in enough places and good things happen. Right. And to me, I was like, that's why I'm stuck at multi-6. I'm not going to get to 7 figures on my strengths. You can get to 6 figures on your strengths. Okay. But getting to 7 figures is about filling in the blind spots. And so I was like, I'm going to take the whole year and I'm going to get more organized with my systems. And I said, I had someone I was learning at the time from ads and funnels from. His name was Zach. I was like, Zach is a 10 out of 10 on like the nerd scale. And I don't mean that as an insult because like nerdy is like cool. He just like, he could jump into a spreadsheet and be like, and just like the whole spreadsheet was like, came to life to him like a freaking, like he's playing the guitar. I'm just like, what are you even? And I was like, I'm never going to be that. But I also can't afford to be like a 1 or 2 out of 10. So my goal is to take this year. I don't need to become a 10 out of 10 over there, but I need to become like a 5 or 6 out of 10. And if I can take my natural charisma, that's a 10 out of 10, and then take my organization, whatever you want to call it, from a 2 to a 4, that's like doubling, right? And so I think sometimes we get it in our head, like, oh, if I watch Josh, I need to be a 10 out of 10 on charisma. No, you really don't. Not if that's not your zone of genius. But you also can't afford to be a 1 out of 10 on charisma. Because if you are in the people business at all, there has got to be some type of an energy factor, or like you're not going to keep anybody's attention. So, I have another doctor friend. He's an eye doctor, and he's very like intellectual, low key, very even keel, like definitely not the guy that's like getting on stage and blowing your mind. But he's brilliant on the organizational and finance side. Like he could just pull out his financials like right this second and just tell you every single thing that's on his spreadsheet for the last 10 years. I mean, like that's his zone of genius. So he leans into that.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, developing some of his weaknesses like his charisma. He literally went through our life coach certification so that he could be a better leader for his employees. And so again, like there's not like one way to success, but everyone that got there followed a combination of their zone of genius while filling in blind spots along the way. Does that make sense at all?
It makes sense, and it's really funny. I feel like we're
Saying
like
the same thing.
bringing up the same theme over and over, and I it makes anytime that happens, I feel like someone listening is meant to hear this, and
Yeah.
I am positive that there are people listening who either will be like, I thought I could just do the parts I love and leave everything else.
Yeah.
Like if I don't love it, I don't have to do it. I can build a business doing just the things I love. And honestly, these days you can. You can probably get to, like you said, you can get to like a decent income just doing the parts that you love. But if you can figure out how to work on all of those other things at the
Yeah.
same time, we don't leave the parts that we
Right.
love behind. And that's the other person that I was thinking is
Yeah.
there are so many people who think, well, my strengths aren't good enough because
Yeah.
they're not getting me to where I need to go. And it's like, no, those strengths are so important, but let's also lift up these
Yeah.
other strengths at the same time. And I think a lot of people will they'll completely just ditch the things that they're good at to work on the
Yeah.
other things.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, like keep the main thing, and then
Yes.
lift up the other pieces of it.
Yeah, exactly. Like Michael Jordan needed a Scottie Pippen. Sorry for the sports analogy. They always come out with me. Okay. He needed, like, the reality is he was not gonna win rings without a guy that could like hold down the defense and rebound.
Mhm,
That could also keep up with him, like on his level of like the way he like approached the game. He
mhm,
needed that sidekick. And even though that's like two people, like the reality is when it comes to our businesses, we kind of do have to be multiple people. So
mhm,
like you need to be the Michael Jordan who literally owns your strengths to the max. But then you kind of got to develop a Scottie Pippen, which again, for me, like the charisma would be my MJ, my organization would be my Pippen,
mhm.
and like when the two are working together, that's when it's magical. And that's why the Bulls won 6 rings, is because every other team like had a strength, but also had a weakness.
Mhm.
And the Bulls had 0 weaknesses because they filled in every single hole that existed. They literally had no weakness. Like it didn't exist on their team. And we as business owners kind of have to be the same.
It's funny. I know you joked about making a sports analogy, and I don't know anything about sports, but the book, I know, like, again, we made a joke about books. Like, you can't read a book and not, like, if you don't do anything with it, it doesn't matter. The book Winning by Tim Grover,
Yes.
one of the best books I've ever read in my life.
The
It
book
is,
that I quoted earlier.
oh, really?
Yeah.
It is phenomenal. Like, I want to read it again. It's like, I just read it last year and I already want to read it again because it was
Yeah.
phenomenal. Um, okay. I think it's your turn to ask a question.
I've listened. So I personally find a book that really inspires and challenges me.
Mhm,
And if it like if I get that vibe, like this is literally a hole in my life that I need to fill, I will
mhm,
just listen to the book over and over and over and over and over and over until I feel like it's so much a part of me that I no longer need the book because I've become the book. And so Winning is one of those books for me. I've been listening to it. Well, he actually has 2 books. I forget what the other one.
relentless.
Yeah, Relentless. I listened to that one first 15 or 20 times. It was so good, but after a while, some of the stories like are just like you hear it coming before it happens. And then I heard he had another book, Winning. So I went and got Winning, and I was just like, yes, it's
Mhm.
kind of the same thing, but with some like new stories and concepts. So that has literally been my book for the last year. And one of the reasons for that, even though like competitiveness is kind of like can be one of my strengths, we went through a lot of personal stuff in the last year with Jenny's mother-in-law going through cancer and us kind of becoming her like part-time caretakers, which completely changed our lifestyle and kind of like pulled me down some, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And so I just needed that fire. Like I needed someone speaking fire into me. So it's a little strange because in this instance, it's actually one of my strengths, but a strength that had been kind of pulled down, if you will, because of just personal stuff we were going through. And so I almost needed to lean on someone else to bring that out of me for like a season. So, anyways, it's a good book. Everyone should definitely check it out. Okay. How do you stay so Taylor Swift? That's how I worded the question. And here's what I mean by this, okay? I mean this in the most positive way in the world. Taylor Swift is literally the most famous person on the planet right now.
Mhm.
And yet, if you spot her at the Chiefs game, which I know everyone's like mad about, get over it. Who cares? She's having fun, okay? Just let her enjoy herself. It's not her fault that the cameramen like her, okay? But she's just having a good time.
Mhm.
All of the other celebrities, you can tell like success in a way has kind of like, I don't know if this is the right word to even use, but success can kind of jade you a little bit. And what I mean by that, I guess going back to something I said earlier, like I could no longer even go to the trainings because people would follow me around. And that kind of like pulled me away from my element and made it a little harder for me to like really be there. And Taylor's like, everybody's watching. I don't care. I'm just going to sit on the front row and like sing along with my favorite singers. And to me, like that's who you are. You are this person who has created success. You have people following you. I mean, my God, I learned really quick from this last six-figure summit. You have a freaking crew that will follow you anywhere you go. And I feel like you're still just like hanging out on the front row, singing along to your favorite song and just having a good time. And it's probably my favorite thing about you. And I also think that that's why Taylor Swift is so famous because of her ability to be so famous while being so like just normal and real. So like
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't even know if you can explain that, but I'd love to just like ask and just like see like what you say in response to that.
Well, it's because I am just normal. Because I am just a normal human. Um, Honestly, like, it's gonna sound silly, but I think, again, one, it's intentional. Okay, it is. I'm
Yeah.
gonna go back to that. I'm gonna answer that first because it just makes me laugh at this point. Um, I like again talking about books. I really don't feel like I read that much, but apparently I do. The book Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. It's all about like if you let like one of the fastest ways that empires have fallen is when the leader gets too big of an ego. Okay, so
Yeah.
I intentionally keep my ego in check,
Yeah.
but at the same time, we're gonna have to, this is what we're gonna work through, Josh.
Okay.
Josh is gonna be my life coach in case you guys don't know. Um, I don't think I deserve any of this.
Mm,
I really don't. Um, I question, say, I question my abilities. I question my leadership. I question if I should be here on this call. The fact that we're friends, like it doesn't, none of it even makes sense to me. Like I don't feel worthy of any of this. And so while I hope I never lose that
yeah.
part of me, at the same time, I know a lot of it is actually stuff that I need to work through. Does
Yeah.
that make sense? Like I
Yeah.
never want to like lose this more humble part of me,
Yeah. Yeah.
but at the same time, it's not coming from a place of positivity. It's coming from a place of negativity. It's coming from
Yeah.
a place of, well, I don't deserve to be in a spotlight. I am just a normal human. I don't deserve
Yeah.
like when people mention my accolades, I'm like, oh, we don't need to talk about that because it's like I don't. Does that make sense? And
No,
so
it does. Yeah.
I don't think that's necessarily a good answer, and I really
Mhm.
hope that I work through
Oh, it
it.
is. It's
But yeah.
It's such a good answer because to me, like this is for me personally, this is my favorite thing in the world to try to highlight anytime I'm doing an event, interviewing other people. I love to highlight just how, I apologize if this is going on your podcast, Morgan. Again, I can have my guy edit this out for you. Just how fucked up all of us are. And that, like, I really, really, really think we get this. I mean, going back to something I said earlier, I was like, I joined the certification and everybody else was these people that were like 30 years of business experience and success just came so easy to them. Well, then I showed up at the certification to find out 99% of people in the room had no clue what they were doing, were not successful, and hadn't figured anything out. It was just that the 1% that had been successful were getting featured on the calls. So, like, duh, it seemed like everyone had it all together, right? And so, like, my favorite thing to highlight is like people who have success really aren't as special as social media or like the highlight reel makes it seem. We're just normal fucked up people who really made an intentional decision to not let that keep us from getting what we really wanted in life, because we had people that we cared about that we wanted to get it for. So, like, I love that answer, Morgan. And we're gonna work through some of that on our coaching sessions. We are. And at the same time, I'm with you in the sense that I hope you never lose it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because
Mhm.
there's a difference between working through something versus like feeling like you're supposed to get rid of it. Like, I will, like, if you come see me in person, I will be the person who gives you the biggest hug you've ever had in your entire life, and I will talk your ear off. And I never, ever, ever want to lose that.
Mhm.
But of course, I do need to work through some of my issues around people pleasing, right? So, like, I need to work through some of my people pleasing stuff. At the same time, it's what makes me who I am, is that I care so much about people that I want them to like me. So, like, the root of it is usually a positive thing.
Mhm.
I don't know if you've studied the Enneagram, but there's a book specifically by Richard Rohr where he talks about the Enneagram, and it's from a more like Christian perspective, which I'm not personally someone to like really read a lot of Christian books or even push any type of religion in any way, but I really liked the way he explained it. He said that with every single personality type, we have kind of like this root thing that drives us. And the way it gets expressed has everything to do with whether or not we're um like approaching it from growth or
Mhm.
approaching it from like our weakness, like our insecurities. That's the word I'm looking for. And the exact same thing, when mixed with insecurity, turns into a totally different thing than that thing through like your growth zone becomes.
Mhm.
And so, for instance, Enneagram 3, from an insecurity place, could turn into me just running around trying to get attention. But from a growth phase becomes me fully embracing and loving people and trying to be there for them. And it's the same with you. Like, from an insecurity place, you would just go hide in a corner. From a growth place, that same person comes out to mingle with people and love on them and be there for them, even though that probably drains you and you probably have to go take like a 2-hour nap after doing so. Does that make sense at all?
That does make sense. No, I love it. Yeah, it's just I really do hope everyone I hope you all know, like, again, like Josh said, we all have our like inner demons, right? We all have our limiting beliefs, we all have our struggles.
Yep.
I could go off on a tangent and say how so much of mine comes from my childhood, and like again, that's what Josh is gonna have to work through with me, right? Uh, but it's this intentional focus every day on who do I want to become? Not
Yeah.
who have I been for the last, 33 years, but who do
Yeah.
I want to be in the next 10? Who do I want to
Yeah.
be in the next 7 by the
Yeah.
time I'm 40, watching you celebrate your 40th birthday? Okay, hold on. Question. Well, how long are we going for? I don't want to ask you a
I don't know, as
bajillion
long as you want to go.
We'll just stay here all day. No big
I
deal.
told my team I was going to be late for our meeting today because we had a podcast interview. So I don't know, maybe like 15 more minutes is good.
Okay, sounds good. Well, oh my goodness. Then what do okay, so we talked a lot about like achieving and winning and good qualities and things like that. What about the people who aren't in their current winning season? When you're not in a winning season, are you the type to like double down and like push through it, or are you the type to like slow down and learn and reflect? And not just you, because we might do it a little differently.
Yeah,
What would you advise for someone who maybe isn't in a winning season right now but is like really hungry to get there? Does that
Yeah.
make
Yeah. So to me, it's always, 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 and always. So I do not sit around reflecting for 42 days, nor do I try to push through for 42 days. I do both.
Mhm.
I sit down and I really, really look again and ask myself questions like, what are we missing? Like, what is actually happening here? What are the facts? Something we talk a lot about in our life coach certification is separating facts from stories. So sometimes the story is my business sucks right now. Well, like, how do you even measure like what sucks? Like, that's
Mhm.
not a fact. That's a story. There is no thing we could look at that specifically proves your business sucks. Because if it's even 1% better than someone else's, it doesn't suck to that person. Therefore, it is not a fact. That is a story which kind of comes from our feelings and our own projections, right? So I have to regularly sit down and look at like, what are the facts? Well, the facts are maybe sales are down. Okay, why are sales down? And again, don't give me some story about why sales are down. Let's go look at the facts. Have we added new people the way we have in other winning seasons? Have we engaged and put out the kind of value we would have put out? Have we been specifically like doing something to call people to action?
Mhm.
And to me, it really is a reflection of that while saying, also, let's push through and make some shit happen. Because I also believe that through your determination, you can sometimes cover up holes. Like, if with enough determination, even if I'm not as organized, I can still work on becoming more organized, but that is not going to keep me from getting where I want to go this month. I might only become 1% better organized this month, but I'm through my own determination gonna go create what I really want. And I just think there's an element of like it's like a combined determination with a little bit of manifestation. And I don't really talk about manifestation a lot because I think sometimes it can get like a little too woo-woo. And I'm not anti woo-woo. I'm not anti-religion. For me, it's just like I don't take any of that to the extreme. I think it has its place. And I think they're really, really important spiritual principles to life and to business. I just grew up in a world where we took everything to the extreme and I saw how dangerous that could be. So for me, I'm like, there are elements of this that really do matter. And one of those elements is like the universe will give you what you demand. And I don't say that in some type of like oh, I wake up and tell God every day. Like that's not what I mean. But Think and Grow Rich,
Mhm.
one of the greatest books ever written. It's from like 1934. And if you read the book, there is not one single thing that has been said in a book since that was not already said there. I don't care what you think. Like, oh, this brand new book came out, and that's great. It's good to hear new stories, good to hear new perspectives. Promise you, Napoleon Hill already said it. Like, that's just what it is. And one of the things he talks about a lot, the word manifestation didn't really exist back then. You know what I mean? So like using more just like layman's terms. But one of the things he says that like, if you ask life for a penny, like that's all you're going to get. And I found that to be true. Found that to be true my whole life. Like I had so many times, like I detailed cars for 10 years because I believed I was making more money there than what I really deserved based on not having a college degree, like I just worked my ass off drinking coffee all day and night. And in my head, I was like, there's no way there's another job out there that would pay me this kind of money to not work this hard. So my entire worth as far as like what I got paid was fully dependent on my sweat, blood, and tears. There could have been a million other ways to make money. I just never even took the time to ask because that's what I was convinced I should get. And so there's definitely some manifestation stuff involved. Again, I just don't like throwing around that word unless I have a chance to like really explain what I'm talking about.
No, it made me laugh because for any of like my followers, that's how I talk to them about manifestation. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say manifestation, but like not really. Like I'm not like
Yeah.
woo-woo, but the way that you said it is almost identical to how I say it. And the whole time I was thinking, we're
I
so
love
much
that.
alike while being very different person.
True. It's very true, Morgan. And I have really found that so many times the people that I end up getting along with in business, we are so completely similar while being completely different. And that's the beauty of like life is aligned values is like the most important thing. Not like, can Morgan do exactly what I do? No. Can I do exactly what she does? No. And so, like, I really think it's important when you look at successful people, not to even, could I do what she does? That doesn't matter. That it literally has nothing to do with what kind of success you can create. It's can you learn from the things they're doing that then get applied in your own way based on like who you are and how you express and experience the world.
I love it. Did you want to do before we like wrap up? Did you want to
Yeah.
do? You said you wanted to do one question that we basically crop it and we only have it.
Yes. So I'm going to ask Morgan a question that's only going to go on my podcast. And then she's going to ask me a question that's only going to go on her podcast. That way, you have to go listen to both episodes.
And if you're watching live, you're welcome. You get to hear both.
Yeah, if you're here live,
for
you're a
being here.
cheater. Okay, so I want to know, what are 2 keys, and I'm sure you have way more than that, but what are 2 keys to regular social media growth?
This is so funny because my question for you is so similar.
Good. But
Okay, so
no,
hold
it's
on,
not. No, it's not. It's a completely different question on the other episode.
It literally cracks me up that that was like our secret question, right? Okay, so 2 keys to growth on social media. Giving what you want to get.
Mm.
So if you want comments, I want like, and I can already hear it. Like, Josh doesn't build his business this way. Okay. He's asking me. This is my question.
Yes,
So give
correct.
what you want to get. If I want more comments, I'm going to comment on more people's stuff. If I want more people watching my stories, I'm going to watch more people's stories. If I want more people tagging me when they get their orders so that I can share that in my stories, I will tag all the businesses that I order from in my stories. Like, I give the type of engagement that I want to get. And again, this comes back to manifestation and like woo-woo stuff, but at the same time, it's not. It's also logical.
Yep.
Like the more you communicate and engage with
Yeah.
someone, the more typically that they're going to engage and communicate with you. So every single day I focus more on engagement than I do on content. And that might sound so crazy, but the relationships that I have built online as an introvert speaks for itself. And it's because I focus on giving, not on getting. And I promise it comes back to you.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
And then, okay, that's my number one. Cause I don't want to say consistency. Like, I really don't want to say, well, I guess, no, you said growth.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, you gave me Too much pressure. Okay. This one is very, oh no.
Say whatever you're thinking. It's fine. If it's
I have so many answers. I think that this is so silly, but I think going live is important.
Hmm.
I think going live is something on all platforms, like whatever platform you're on. So this is not just a Facebook thing. On Instagram, when you go live, your bubble is at the very front. It doesn't matter how many people they follow, as long
Yeah.
as they open Instagram while you're live, your bubble's at the very front. And you might go, but Morgan, no one pops on when I'm live on Instagram. They're not popping on, but they're seeing your face more than everyone else is. They're seeing your face consistently. I go live on Instagram almost every single day. It's not about if people watch, it's that I know they're seeing my bubble. I know for a fact they're seeing it because that's how Instagram works. When I go live on Facebook, I really focus on engagement, on asking questions, on getting people to comment, because the more people comment, people do what other people do. The more people comment, the more people comment. So I'm focusing on, I use live video to build relationships. It's not as much about providing value, which is a big buzzword, right? It's actually just about showing my face and letting people hear my voice, because most people are just posting photos or pointing in reels. Not a lot of people are talking on social media anymore. And same thing with TikTok. Any TikToker will tell you going live is where they grow their following, other than having like one reel go viral. So anyway, narrowing it down to two was really hard, but that's, I would say,
I like that.
those are my two main ones: giving as much as I can and going live consistently.
I love those. The first one is a universal principle. What you reap is what you sow. Some
Mhm.
people call it karma. Every religion on the planet has a way of basically saying the same thing. And I fully agree with that. And I like what you said. You made a really good point about the going live. You said no one else is doing it.
Not
One of
consistent.
the things that Grant Cardone said a long time ago that I really grabbed onto was, if you really want to stand out from the crowd, be willing to do what other people aren't willing to do.
Mhm.
And that's, to me, where that would be one of the other things, if we were to add to the answer earlier about what successful people have in common. They're willing to do the things that most people were like, oh, that was a good point. Yeah, thanks. Wrote it down, and then it just stayed in a journal forever. Whereas like successful people were like, that was a really good point. I'm going to go home and do that. And I also think it's important to say do, not try. Like, I'm not gonna not as successful people I'm gonna go home and try that. Successful people are like, nope, that's what I'm gonna go home and do. And that's not to say that they do everything. There are some things that they hear, they're like, that doesn't really align. Like, I don't think that's where I belong. But when
Mhm.
they hear something that does align and they do believe it belongs, they go home and just do it until it works.
This is not on topic, but I don't think I've actually said this out loud before, and you just reminded me of something.
Okay.
The saying, like how you just said, stop saying try and just do. Like,
Yeah.
just say I'm gonna do it, not I'm gonna try to do it, because you're like giving yourself an out.
Yes.
Something that's really common in network marketing is these like 90-day runs or 30-day runs or 60-day whatever. And recently it was another coach that I follow that he was like, stop saying it's a 90-day run and just do it. Like, just consistently do it. Are you going to stop doing it after 90 days if it works? That doesn't
Right.
even make sense. And
Right.
that's like what that just reminded me of, because I've been wanting to talk about that, about why do we
Yeah.
focus on these like 30, 60, 90-day pushes, and
Yeah.
why don't we just make the
Right.
changes we're supposed to make in our
Yeah.
daily habits of our business?
Right.
So, my question,
Okay. I'm
dramatic
ready.
pause, so that we can edit. No, I'm just kidding. Well, no, I'll probably edit after the question so that they hear it, and then, well, no, you would be the
Ooh,
one
that's
editing.
golden. That's golden. Did you
Edit
get
after
that,
the
Kurt? Kurt,
question.
I need you to remember that in the editing process.
Edit after the question.
After the question. Give them the
Okay.
question and then be like, sorry, if you'd like to hear the rest, head
Right?
on over.
Like, put on like do 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 do. My question is actually the opposite of yours, and
Okay.
it's, why do most people? I'm laughing at myself because I wouldn't even normally say this.
Okay.
Why do most people suck at sales on social media? What are people doing wrong? What is it that you see that you're like,
Yeah.
stop doing that?
All right. I just want to start this conversation, this answer, I should say, by saying it goes against everything in me to ever guilt or shame. Okay. That's a huge part of our life coach certification is that the head voice is rooted in guilt and shame. And so I just want to say I mean zero guilt or shame about what I'm about to say. Okay. Morgan asked the question and I'm just responding
I
it.
made your face red so fast that I feel so accomplished right now. I wish
No, I'm
everyone
proud of
could
you.
see
I'm
you.
proud of you. I just want to be very clear that I'm not one of those people that wants to come on and tell everybody what they're doing wrong. At the same time, I do think there's, based on psychology, just some things that make logical sense and some things that don't. Okay. So, one of my biggest pet peeves that I see so much is people leading with like a call out. So, if in your first sentence you say something that makes you feel like, oh, mic drop, take that, that's not good connecting because you literally just led with guilt and shame. And no one in the world that needs to hear what you just said is open to listening to it when you tried to open with that. So John Maxwell has this brilliant quote that I love so much. He says, nobody cares what you know until they know how much you care. And I do think that a lot of times on social media, we get frustrated with people who aren't listening to what we're saying or doing what we're saying. And out of a place of frustration, we sometimes use social media to vent.
Mhm.
And what makes it worse is that people from your industry who agree with you are like, amen, way to tell them, way to preach. Oh, drop the mic. Oh, and then you're like, yeah, I did it. That was good. And people who aren't in your industry, who you were trying to convince of this point, were just like, screw you. Like, so I'll give you an example. Leading with something like this is my least favorite. We all have the same 24 hours in a day. And that's why you should be able to make time. You don't find time, you make time. And it's like that is technically true. And yet feels like the biggest slap in the face to someone who is really struggling right now and battling through a lot of hard things in their life. And you're basically just like the way they hear it is, why can't you just get over your shit and be as good as me? And so it comes from this very like almost like I'm looking down on you kind of a thing. And here's what I will say is you might actually see big time influencers doing stuff like this and actually making money. And I will say that fear and judgment and shame can actually lead to making money. But just in my opinion, it's never a good thing.
Mhm.
Because if you lead with fear and judgment and shame, it means people are joining you not because they feel aligned and are excited and passionate to work with you, but they're joining you because they feel like they have no other choice. They're almost joining you out of desperation. And it's from that same negativity that they come in as a customer or a client or whatever that is. And then they're literally starting off their journey from a place of, I'm a little piece of shit and you're the best in the world. So, and the problem with that is they're going to stay in that phase. And
Mhm.
so you don't very often lead with guilt and shame and actually transform someone into a confident, like better person. Instead, like you end up bringing them in on guilt and shame, and then they kind of just stay in guilt and shame. And so, what I think is really, really important is that you come from a place of empathy for the people that are struggling.
Mhm.
And I would just tell you right now that 90% of people will never listen and never take your advice. And that's none of your damn business. Like what people do or don't do with their lives is none of your damn business. And so if people don't want to join you, that's okay. I still love you. And that is the really tough thing that you have to deal with on a regular basis is the frustration of people not getting it, but never, ever, ever taking that out on them. What I learned a long time ago from J Max, one of the very first lessons I learned was everything in my business is my fault, good or bad. And I'm very careful not to turn that into a self-judgment or shame and more of just like an ownership and responsibility. So if people don't get it, it is not their fault, it's mine.
I'm so
I need to
excited.
get better.
I'm so excited about all of this. I hope that you take all of this and turn it into reels. I'm just gonna challenge that for you.
Okay.
You
All
have
right.
so many
I'm gonna do it.
clips. You have so many good. You have some mic drop moments. Thank you for being willing to answer that question. I know that was
You're
out,
welcome.
out of
And usually on a webinar, I would say all of that. And so this is a really good point to make about the exact thing that you're like asking me about. In a webinar, I would have said all of that, but not from the beginning. I would have leaned into the struggle first. So, give you an example. I would be like, are you struggling to build your social media? Does it feel like you are literally pouring your heart and soul out to the entire internet, but nobody's listening and nobody's responding? I totally get it. Nothing is harder than feeling like you're working harder than you're getting rewarded for. That's why I dug in and started asking myself powerful questions about why aren't people engaging? Why aren't people paying attention? And as I studied it further, I finally realized it wasn't their fault, it was mine. Do you see how much different that is than saying, if your audience isn't responding, that's not their fault, that's yours? Mic drop, see ya. Like in step one, I leaned into the problem first and how that's affecting your life. And I tried to essentially create a safe space for you to actually feel frustrated about what you're going through and then offer a solution. In step two, I just led with the solution as like a call out. That's like a ha ha, see, I put you in your place. And it's not my job to put you in your place. You're a grown adult. I'm a grown adult. I'm not here to put you in your place. I'm here to love you and help you find direction that's going to help you. So that's my big one. Like, I mean, I could obviously go on for another 2 hours about that, but that's my big one is just literally stop taking other people's responses to your business personally, because all they are trying to do today is get through their day and take care of the people they love and make their life better. No one else's goal today was to help your social media. And that's why I love something that Morgan said earlier, that you get back what you put out. Like no one woke up today and was like, "Ah, I bet Josh is like needing some help with his engagement. Let me put my entire life on hold and go make sure I like." That's not their job.
Mhm.
So my job is to communicate the things that I know are the forefront of their brains so that it captures their attention and makes them want to engage because it serves them, not because it serves me.
No, I love that that's your biggest your biggest thing. And I love what you said about even when people do get engagement on that, it's usually their peers, not
Yeah.
their prospects. It's usually the people that are equal to them. It's like they're high-fiving each other and it's like that's not helpful. That's not growing your business, it's growing your ego, really truly.
Yeah.
Um For me, it's just interesting that you said that because one of the intentional oh my gosh, how many times do I say that word? One of the intentional shifts I made in my social media, in 2023, I actually was able to grow my business, whereas a lot of people's businesses in 2023 went backwards.
Yeah.
And one of the shifts that I made was I was really sick of everyone focusing on the negative, which is kind of what you're saying, but not but I was so sick of the first line being a negative call out. I am just over that. And so instead, I wanted to speak to people's vision of where they want to go, where they want their future to go. What is it that they're looking for? Speaking to their heart, as as you would call it. Like that's what I wanted to speak here, not here. Because if I'm speaking to this part of them, then I'm not speaking to the part of them that I really want to communicate with. And so I made this intentional shift in my content to speak more in vision instead of in past or in negative or in any of that. And I saw growth. And I think it's because most people aren't doing that. Most people think that the best and fastest way is through speaking to the negative instead.
Yeah. And the best and fastest way is not usually the best and fastest way. It's usually us being lazy and trying to skip steps. So like, yeah, I could definitely start every single post with a call out that tells everyone what they should be doing better. And I might even be right. But it would not in any way build a connection or trust. And it's through connection and trust that people eventually purchase. It's not the goal to get people to purchase today. It's the goal to build connection and trust today so that they purchase later.
Yep. And one of my questions was going to be, what should we be focusing on 2024? But I feel like that's probably the answer.
That isn't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Focusing on connection and building trust with people.
Yeah, exactly. And just remembering that the results that you're getting now is because of what you were doing 3 to 6 months ago. And what you're doing now will bring you the results 3 to 6 months from now. And so for me, ever since day one, it's been like, do something today that future Josh can be thankful for and proud of. So everything that I have today is because of what Josh did the last 9 years. Has nothing to do with what I did yesterday or the day before, right? And everything that I'm gonna have a year from now will be like, how much did this Josh build on to what that Josh did? Or did he like let it go? And you'll only know a year from now. I hope I make the right choice.
I was gonna say, I think we're moving in the right direction. But one quality that I have is that I like to be punctual, and I do have another Zoom call coming up. So
Sounds good.
This has been amazing. I could talk to you all day. Thank you everyone for hanging out with us. I feel like I should let you wrap up because you started.
No, it's okay. You can wrap it up. Do it. I started, so you can wrap it up.
I think this was amazing. I hope that this was helpful for everyone who's listening. I don't know, sometimes like I have a limiting belief that we're all over the place, but I feel like anyone listening should have been able to get numerous amount of notes and tips and even just like some hints. Like I was like, wow, like we've read a lot of books. There's a hint there, you guys. Like successful people, success leaves clues. No, you can actually wrap it up. You can say bye to everyone because I'm awkward.
Well, I'll just say that we love you and that we care about you and that we believe in you. So thank you for giving us your time, your attention. It means a lot to us that you would take time out of your day to listen to us talk. And I hope that it was valuable. I hope that it helps you. I always like to close off my podcast by just saying, never forget that everything you need is already on the inside and all the resources you'll ever need are right under your nose. So thank you, Morgan. I appreciate you so much. Thank you, everyone. Have an amazing day. We'll see you all soon.
The recording has stopped.